Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host, Rick Girard.
All right, so let's start with the question today. Does our company make your life better? Now, ideally, the answer is yes. But in my experience as a top Silicon Valley recruiter, the answer has almost always been no. This is one of my favorite questions to ask when I recruit people because it opens the door for providing a stronger opportunity with another company, usually one of my clients. Now, if all questions just ask their employees how they could provide more than just a paycheck and a ping pong table, they would experience greater retention and more profitable growth. My name is Rick Girard. Welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people. We do so by sharing insights from top performing rebel entrepreneurs, game changers, and industry leaders like our guest today, Mr. Steve Hamil. Steve is the director of operations at Populous Cleaning Company. Now, Populous' mission statement and core values, which emphasize personal and professional growth, really resonated with Steve. He thrives in a place where he can make a difference. Not only that, but where he'll be challenged as well. Now, Steve is an outstanding communicator with a passion for coaching, mentoring, and training and conflict resolution, which is what makes Steve the perfect expert for today's topic. Steve, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is what's in it for me. I don't think enough of us ask our people, what's in it for you? What's keeping you here? What's keeping you engaged? How can we do better for you? I've made a career as a headhunter in finding those people who are just not feeling like their company loves them anymore and finding a place for them where the company does. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think when we first started talking, you're in a high turnover business. You guys have been tackling that for a while. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So our industry typically, 100 to 200% turnover rate is very common. So I talk among our other peer companies, and that is a regular day experience.
If I hire 10 people, that means like 15 of them are going to quit.
Of the existing, that's right.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Just to elaborate on that, you're in a high turnover business, high customer touch. What have you guys been doing to actually get that down? Like, where are you now? And like, give me the scoop on what you guys have been tackling there.
Sure. Yeah. So, the company has been very concerned about the employee well before I've been here. So I've been here about 3 years with Populous, and the company as a whole has been very concerned about the employee and engaging the employee. And, to your point earlier, asking that question, what do you want from the customer? What do you want from the company? And a lot of times it's kind of a question you sort of avoid, you don't want to bring it up. It's just like, hey, you come and get a paycheck and do the work, and you don't really want to talk about those kind of questions. But companies have been very engaged with those kind of questions. And so we have been, experiencing high turnover as well. And we have recently brought that turnover down to an average of 45% on a rolling rate. Just a quarter ago, we hit 29%, right, in the first quarter of the year. So really attacking this number.
That's pretty outstanding. It's funny because as the visual kind of pops into mind, did you ever see that movie Elf with Will Ferrell? When he gets put in the mailroom and they're drinking and he goes, God, man, I have ideas. Nobody ever listens to me.
Yeah, that's right.
That image just popped into my mind. I'm going, God, you know what? Like, I'm sure there's so many people that feel like that. You've been able to cut it down. What has been the pain point driving you guys getting it down to 20-ish%, right?
Right. So, just anybody in this kind of service industry, when you have high turnover, there's just a lot of energy that goes into time and training and knowledge transfer, from the position you're trying to fill to the next person. So someone who works 2 days and then they leave, or they work a week and they're gone, and then you're retraining. So there's a lot of time and energy, there's quality issues with the kind
Yeah.
of products they're trying to provide, and
Sure.
so there's issues with quality, and just operationally, there is a high stress level on the management support staff when there's a high turnover rate.
When you have the wrong person in the wrong seat, there's three effects that happen. You have the company, you have the employee, and then you have the customer.
Right.
What's the effect on the company been? Do you have an understanding of what it costs you guys from a loss perspective?
Yeah. So it comes to mind I think of one particular site, and we've been doing a study on this, and it's because we've not been able to find the right person, right seat. And so I looked over a 6 month period, and over a 6 month period, operationally, we were $1,000 over budget. So that's
Mm.
what our top pay is, and our top hours for that site. We're $1,000 over budget, and then I did a
For each
research on.
employee?
Well, no, that's for the whole site project.
Oh,
So
got
for
it.
the whole
Okay.
site project, we're over budget $1,000, and then on top of that, I was calculating out our support staff that is filling in for that. So every day that we don't have the right person, right seat, we've got support staff, right, that are covering that. And over a 6 month period, in travel time alone, we earned another $4,500, right, to our detriment. So we pulled off in 6 months, we're $5,500 in the hole against our profit of about 15,500. So $5,500, we've taken a hit because
Yeah.
we've not found the right person, and on top of that, that's not even taking the toll of the stress it's been for the managers who are training it and making sure the customer is happy and the quality is there, because we've got multiple people coming through that site and covering that site, all the quality concerns. There's a large price that is being paid by the company.
And a lot of us entrepreneurs and CEOs look at this like, well, that's just kind of the cost of doing business, right? We'll try and figure out how to do it better. But I think we need to stop looking at it from that perspective. I mean, like, if you get the right person in the right seat every time, what does that mean for you? Instead of being $5,500 in the hole, you're an additional $5,500 in profit.
That's right, and a whole
Yeah.
lot less stress on
Yeah.
the, which is hard to put a price tag on with your support staff and management.
So very true. Well, let's talk about the employees too, because how does it affect the employees, them not being in the right seat?
Yeah, so the employee who's not in the right seat, you know, struggles to provide the kind of service that we need there.
Yeah.
Right? They're not happy, and so they're not portraying that. In this particular site, you're in front of the customer. Some of our work is done behind the scenes, but the one I did this particular one on, you're in front of the scenes. You're with the customer, and so when you're not happy, you're portraying that unhappiness to the customer. Your work suffers, right? You're not doing it with your full heart,
Yep.
with all of your heart, and on top of that, just the employee's life, right? So you've got people that are coming in and miserable and leaving, and so now they don't have a job, if that's the case. And somebody who does have the job, right, is miserable in their working it. So there's a lot of effects for the employee who's not in the right seat.
How does that transfer through to the customer?
So the customer, from a practical standpoint, see multiple people coming through their site becomes a security concern. There could be more work with badging and safety training and that kind of stuff that is being produced on their end. But it also can be experienced in quality, right? So they're expecting a certain product from us. And as we are moving multiple people through a site, it's not the same person. We could have transfer loss, between the people not meeting the product that we've promised. And so there can be a real frustration on their side as well.
The way I see it, this is kind of simple. By you actually caring about making sure that you get the right person in the right seat, you're essentially doing two things. Number one, you're like actually saving, pulling people from production, from their daily jobs, which they're happy doing other things to train other people. You're also kind of creating a scenario for your customers where there's not an opportunity cost loss as well, because they're not spending the time having to go through the actions of continually having to kind of retrain, re-engage, bring a
Mhm.
new person up to speed that much.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right, shoot. You're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard. And for our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors.
I want to take a break real quick just to let you know about a new show we've just added to the network. Up Next at Work, hosted by Gene and Kata Keel of the Devon Group. Fantastic show. If you're looking for something that pushes the norm, pushes the boundaries, has some really spirited conversations, Google Up Next at Work, Gene and Kata Keel from the Devon Group.
All right, I'm digging in deeper with our guest, Steve Hamil. He's the Director of Operations at Populous Cleaning. And what we're talking about today is giving a rat's ass about your employees and asking what's in it for them. Um, this kind of drives us into the solution piece of the conversation because ultimately it's our job as a business to drive customer success. But again, you can't do that unless you really care about your people and the people you have on board. Let's drill down on that a little bit deeper. So, how are you guys actually doing this?
So, I mean, we work with EOS, and so we have rocks, which are like 3-month projects. And as I like over the past 2 years, we've had multiple rocks that have sought to attack this question: how do we, lower the turnover rate?
Mhm.
And so some of the outflow of those rocks have been adding a pre-screen to our process of hiring. So we've got a cultural engagement officer. Actually, he was a rock, his position and what he does, and then the cultural engagement officer being involved with these pre-screen, cultural core value seeking questions, in our candidate.
So there's two things. First off, for those of you who don't run EOS, rocks are essentially your 90-day goals.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we're bringing into play core values. That's a really important aspect of a lot of coaching systems, not just EOS, but building around core values and actually making those a language by which your company operates makes your life so much easier because then you give people a North Star by which to make decisions. You're starting with pre-screen value alignment interviews. So walk me through that. What does that look like?
So there's not a lot of questions. There's a few questions, and there's a couple in particular that have given us traction with, identifying good candidates. One of those is, what environment do you thrive in? This is important for us because we work in office buildings, medical facilities, and then warehouses, which could be, greasy and oily and hot. And so we're really
Yeah.
trying to find, in this case, the cultural fit, right, of the person. Where do they fit? What are they going to really thrive in as a person? And so we're trying to discern that. And then another key, like, core value question is, unfortunately, this is an industry that can be a bit thankless. However, Populist has 5 core values we really try to stand behind in all we do. He indicates that he states them to them. He says, and he wants them to let him know what is their favorite and why. And we feel like this really helps us to get a sense of where they might, fit in well with us.
Hmm. Two things. I love the what type of environment do you thrive in because that really gets somebody to open up so that they can essentially I have a question that's very similar to that. If you can create your next opportunity from scratch, what would that look like for you? Because I want to understand exactly that question. So, what environment are you going to thrive in? That's really important. And a lot of times we go into, I just need to sell this person on my job because I need to
Mhm.
fill this seat, that I don't take the time to understand, like, what is it that other person wants? So, you're actually starting the interaction at the interview process in a way, and then carrying it through to engagement that you really do care about what the person wants. I love that.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
exactly right.
I found that's kind of interesting about core value. When you ask people, like, hey, have you checked out our core values? And they all go, yeah, I totally did. I really resonate with them. Which
Yeah.
one and why? They'll pick one that's maybe their favorite. I've never had anybody say, no, you know what? I hate your core values. I don't think I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's true.
especially if they need a job.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's always one that is always kind of a fun thing. How many core values do you have? And then is there anything that you guys are doing that's maybe different than your competitors as far as how you're evaluating somebody for those core values?
Sure, we have five. They're commitment, hard work, individual responsibility, respect, and professionalism. And a separator for us, I think individual responsibility, might be a separator for us. We really press in on that, owning your actions, owning your decisions. We really are trying to, promote that. So some might say pay to play, but I mean, from our perspective, we teach this and we demonstrate this, and of course we promote and we also discipline on these. And so we seek to carry these through from interview, through our promotion, also through our discipline process, using these core values.
Got it. Probably important to note that you guys probably have a language around it. Do you guys actually bring this up and talk about it quite often in your day-to-day operations? Hey,
We
Joe
do.
showed individual responsibility today by, doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, I know I mentioned this. We do have an orientation, and so we walk through these. We define these, and then when we use what's called like a coaching form, some would use it, as a discipline notice. But in our coaching form, we always try to relate whatever it is, whether it's attendance or it's performance. We relate it to our core values and language. Um, so, I mean, we use this. We do different meetings where we speak about our core values and we promote those core values. A lot of times we have a quarterly Teams call with our whole company, and we always invite people to share their favorite core value and why, and we interweave that between our managers and our frontline professionals across the board. So we talk about these actually quite often.
That's great. It's funny. I feel like I've become like this beacon of talking about core values. Yourself and a lot of the other guests that I've had on have ridiculously successful companies you guys are running, and you run around core values, and you don't have a lot of the problems that a lot of people who I do talk to who don't run core values have. So you probably don't experience the pain as much as your competitors because they don't.
Yeah.
Just give me a quick snapshot, your interview process, and then let's go into the engagement. I want to spend a few minutes there. You do a screen, and that's where you guys align core values. Then what do you guys do? Step it out for me if you don't mind.
So right after the phone screen, pending everything looks good, we provide a contingent job offer, which we then take it to a step of commitment by getting a background check. So that gets processed. So just them at that point submitting the information to do that, right, is a step of commitment, which we're looking for. And then we go to a scheduled interview with the frontline account manager that they would actually be reporting to. And the account manager actually has a 2-page sheet. This was off of a rock that we did as well in the last 2 years, where we took every question and put it through the grid of our core values. So we looked at how does this question display a core value? What kind of an answer is what we're like looking for in this question? And we tried to marry those together against as account managers are out there interviewing, for the actual position.
Brilliant. So then they do well on that one. So that's contingency of the offer. Once they make it through, then you give them the official written offer letter, and then boom, they're off to orientation.
Yeah. So, good background check, which again has been a bit of an issue in our industry. And that's why we're trying to do that a little bit higher up in the process.
Sure.
And then, a positive interview. So then we schedule first day, which includes an orientation, which, walks through, it's about a, 45-minute walkthrough of our company, but then we talk about core values as well as other important things. Obviously with the company, we actually talk about EOS in there as well and introduce them to EOS. And then our goal has been, and this has been a part of our rocks as a company, is looking at the first 90 days. And so we look to engage the employee from 2 different perspectives. One of them is our culture engagement officer is reaching out to the employee multiple times over the 90 days. And then the other side of the engagement is our operations team that is onboarding, training, and then following up with the first 90 days with a very prescribed, regimen to get them to the 90 days. And we celebrate the end with Uber Eats card if you've made it. So we're very excited. And there's other enticements there as well, including a raise. But
if
we
you
really
make it
want to
90
celebrate
days,
it.
we feed you. I love it.
Yeah,
I mean, hey,
you made it.
shows you love somebody more than food in my belly, man. That's how I roll. All right, so I
Absolutely.
just want to point out two key things. You guys have a structured process from start to finish, and you're regimented about doing that. You've got people that are responsible to step in and step out at different points. This is how you drive that turnover from 100% down to 20%, right?
Yeah.
This is how you do it, guys. Steve, let's keep going on it. So let's talk about the 90-day engagement. All right, I got my new job. What am I doing now that's going to keep me from taking my phone call when I call up and say, "Hey, I have a better chicken for you"?
Right. Well, it's very interesting as I've talked just on the operational side, even with other peer companies, that many have found that somebody, who is kind of half-assed in their training, I'm saying they do not last within a week or two, or they will not make it to 90 days. So, spending time making sure that they are fully equipped to do their job, they're equipped with the PPE and the safety, and they understand what their role is and their expectations. So that's a key part. And if I were to say we're perfect on that, we're not. But we've been working very hard on this, and we continue to focus on this because in the end, our industry is known for, the breath in the mirror test. Like that is the interview process. Are you alive? What I'm saying? Will you come and work with us Monday? We'll see you then. And so we have added a lot of these steps because we know that the time and the energy and the money isn't worth it in the end, right? Just to keep filling that spot over and over and over again. So training, onboarding, making sure they're outfitted right from the start. We have a online training for safety as well as, what you actually do in your job. So there's a video that they watch and they answer some questions to that. That's recorded. And then there's on the job training with an account assistant or account manager or branch manager or with them, for the first 3 to 7 days specifically, but then there's follow-up. And then there's testing that we're having, and we're just finishing up some rocks on some of these things where there's competency-based training, the competency-based evaluation off of their specific skills. So we think that's going to be very important for them. So you got to have like a certification, right? You're a professional cleaner. Here's what a professional cleaner looks like. You wear this, you do this, what I'm saying? You always do it this way. And we've confirmed that you've done that. So that's what's happening there. The culture engagement officer is also engaging with the employee apart from their manager. So the manager doesn't know when these calls and texts are coming, but there's multiple things that happen, and there's a very specific SOP on this. So there's a connect and survey. There's a blind survey that comes to them by way of text. There's also a follow-up text and phone call from the culture engagement officer. Week 3, the training that comes through online training is sent out to them. Week 4, there's a people analyzer that is done by the manager that the culture engagement officer is collecting. And then they're also sending out another survey. And again, these surveys are about, are you equipped? Is this a right job for you? Are you thriving? Right? Week 3, are you thriving in your role? And sometimes we do get some, bad feedback. I'm not hearing from my manager, or, I don't seem like my vacuum cleaner doesn't work, and so sometimes we're getting that back through and we're finding there's breakdowns, on our operational side. So it's been very good for us that way. We also are promoting, financial software that we have acquired as a company to give out to our employees. So we're also introducing them to that. And then we're also introducing them to terms of EOS and giving them materials about EOS during the first 90 days. So they learn about how we run as a company.
I love that you guys are kind of creating this. You're really welcoming everybody into the tribe. You've created this scenario where I almost like to call your cultural experience officer like the chief. We give a shit off.
Yeah, that's right. We care about you.
Yeah. And look, companies don't do this. Your competitors probably don't do this. It's funny because we have a client that we worked with for years. They're a caregiving company. They do at-home care. They have developed such a good reputation within the industry. They hire purely for core value alignment, and then they roll out this pure training, and there's a ton of engagement and support they have a constant flow of people coming to them saying, hey, we want to work for you. They don't even advertise their jobs anymore. It was funny. I talked to the CEO about a year and a half ago, and he said, we haven't made a bad hire in 4 years. And as a matter of fact, we don't advertise anymore. And we've grown from 40 some people when we started working with them to now they're close to 600 people, which is a huge testimonial. It just caring keeps people engaged. It keeps them feeling like, hey, look at this is the place I want to be. I think it was Maya Angelou who said, people don't really care so much what you say, they care about how you make them feel.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking the question, are we giving you what you need? Love it. That's what most companies are not doing. If you're listening to the podcast right now, you should definitely, you want to know. You want to know if you're doing right or wrong by these people. All right, Steve, we're getting pretty close on time. We're going to wrap up here. So what would you say would be 2 or 3 key takeaways you can give the audience that can plug into their business today?
I think the pre-interview phone screen, looking for the cultural and the core value fit has been, paramount to our success. I think also, placing steps of commitment in the interview process. So, we've purposely elongated our interview process with showing steps of commitment. The second interview, where we've taken our grid and tied it to our core values, I think, again, has been another game changer for us. And then the engagement process in the first 90 days, cultural and operational, engaging with the employee, very specific.
That's great stuff. Steve, thanks so much for your time investment today. And I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, what would be the best way in which members of the audience can reach you, find out more about your company?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can go to populouscleaning.com. Easy to find us that way. Easy to find us.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. Huge thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Ayla Gerard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. We're listening and welcome your feedback. After all, this show is for you. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com. Or you can drop me an email at rick@intertrue.ai. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon, or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Gerard.